Hey guys, what's up? Been a while since I've done a long form video, so here I am. Tonight I've got a pretty special one for you, and I say tonight it's 4:43 p.m. Okay, so it's not actually nighttime, but we've got a computer here that is a desktop. It was rebuilt by another shop for some reason. Not rebuilt, but recased, I should say, by another shop, and that shop decided not to put the I/O shield on the computer and decided to run it in an open frame case. Now this has been a few years, so we're going to be looking at the aftermath of that. I've got a couple things that we're going to be doing here with it, and just to improve it, keep the GPU retained and that kind of thing. But without further ado, the rest of this video is going to be voiced over because, as you can hear, there's a lot of background noise with AC and fans, and my dog is upstairs and she's going to probably start walking around and getting excited. So pay attention, and this could be pretty fun. Alright, so as you can see here, this is the open frame chassis that the customer brought me, and you've got the graphics card here, and the graphics card is sliding out of the slot constantly. So you just reseat it, and then everything comes back with no problem when you turn it on. The whole reason that the thing came in is because the graphics card, and not because of the graphics card, but because there was no display. And anytime this gets bumped, or even if it just gets used regularly, it tends to slide out. And that's not good. So we have a new retention bracket for it, and those arrived a little while ago. Those are going to go on the motherboard as well. We're going to preserve pretty much everything in this build with the exception of the cooler and the retention bracket that's already missing. So the cooler, we're not preserving it because one fan keeps getting caught on the blades, and the blades, it's kind of bent up in here, and it's been like that for too long. So we're just going to replace the entire unit. But we're recasing in an NZXT H5 flow. That way the customer gets better airflow and just overall has a more enclosed experience. There's no real need for this particular layout. We can see that it's an open frame chassis, obviously, but things are cable managed in such a way that, well, it gets a little frustrating actually, because there's more zip ties and more to deal with. So, what is up, beautiful YouTube audience? So, we're going to start by just disassembling this. Look at the amount of flex on that case. Isn't that crazy? It still flexes that much even with the glass cover on it. But we're doing a voiceover for this because, well, let's just face it, it's going to be easier than listening to all that white noise. We're going to start by tearing out that GPU. It wants to fall out anyway, so it wasn't really tearing it out. But essentially, we're pulling just everything out of this frame case. If you're curious about what this case is, it is a thermal take case. And for some reason, it was given, recommended that the customer have this. I don't know why. I suppose they're decent for airflow. The customer has a Noctua cooler on it, so I mean, it's pretty nice. It was a pretty nice cooler when it was still functional. And you might have questions about that. So one of the fans keeps getting caught on a couple of the fins on the actual cooler itself, on the actual, I guess I'll say heat spreader. I'm not sure. I get heat sink is what it is. So essentially what's going on is it'll start to cool and then it'll stop cooling. And it's only running at about 50% efficiency because of that. So, well, you just saw me pull out of the power supply there. That was a zip tie that had fallen down into the power supply. And whenever you turn on the computer, it would make a type of sound. It was really lovely, just super lovely. So yeah, pushing out the power supply cables, trying to pull the ones up top. They're in a little bit of an awkward position because they're not where they normally are. This board is set up in such a way that it looks more like a server board than anything else. Because you've got 4 RAM slots on the right and 4 on the left, and this is an X299 chipset. So with the X299 chipset, it treats it more like a server anyway. So that's kind of the whole reason. This is I guess at the time it was an S tier Intel chip. So that's the story on that. Um, so we're just pulling the board out now. Mostly leave things intact. I don't have a great surface when I pull the board off to work on it, but just my desktop basically. I guess I do have an anti-static mat I could have put down underneath of it, but it was all good anyway. So a couple of the screws, the LTT screwdriver tip just doesn't fit in some of the spots on this board, so it was really hard to get the screws out, some of the screws out. And then I don't really know what I'm talking about there. It doesn't really matter too much aside from, I think I'm just showing you, I'm telling you about the bracket for the PCIe slot. So the primary PCIe slot bracket, actually, the retention bracket broke off, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this. Is we needed to tear down the board, replace that bracket, that cooler that wasn't functional, and basically just get the customer working again. So I did find some universal brackets that worked well. Spoiler alert, they work pretty well because it actually held the graphics card in place on this build. So customer did still have a hard drive, which I've never installed in the NZXT H5 Flow. But then also the customer didn't have an I/O shield on the back because the shop that worked on this previously just didn't bother to find a way to make it work, even with double-sided tape or something like that. So they just left that out entirely. So I'm putting the I/O shield back. I had to order that out of Canada, which, if you know anything about relations between the US and Canada on trade right now, it is taking forever for things to get here. And it's costing quite a bit. I had to pay $40 in import charges for that silly little I/O shield because it wasn't available within the US. And if I wanted to wait another 6 weeks, I could get it from China with probably less import fees, but it is what it is. So thank you, UPS, for the $42 that it costs to get an I/O shield across the border into the United States from Canada. All right, right now I'm contemplating what screw is going to work best to mount the motherboard to the actual new NZXT case, because they have two sets of screws that are right next to each other and they look pretty identical. One thing I'm going to tell you right off the bat is if you're building with an NZXT case, always use not the flat top Phillips screws that are towards the top of the package for mounting the motherboard, but use the rounded tipped or the rounded head Phillips head screws, because those just work better. All right. Right now I'm trying to get the old brackets off, or not the old brackets, but the old studs off of the CPU. Didn't really pay too close of attention to how I was handling that for you guys, so I'm sorry about that. And then I did a little Googling and typing a message back. I got a little frustrated actually with this thermal take stuff, because the studs for this X299 chipset were not provided. Well, they were provided with it, but they were not clearly labeled. So it was just assumed that you knew what they were and you would put them on. So I feel like it's kind of a cheat code that a lot of stuff gets sent to us labeled these days, and that's probably accurate to some degree. Lining up the brackets right now for that new Thermalright cooler. If you haven't discovered Thermalright coolers off of Amazon yet, I mean, Thermalright's not just on Amazon, but if you haven't discovered Thermalright yet, you are missing out. That is a brand that is up and coming, and they are pretty rock solid. Their coolers are cheap, especially like this one. It costs like $36.99 for it when I purchased it. It is easy to install. You'll notice that I foobarred it. This is my first rebuild back from vacation, guys, so cut me a break, okay? I left the silly little plastic wrapper on the bottom of it, and you'll see me undo exactly what I did here, because I had that thought immediately as soon as I got it screwed down. Yep, there's that reaction on my face. Pull it off, add a little more paste because I screwed up. Okay, and then you put it back on. And, you know, I don't make those mistakes on people's builds, so it's not something that you really got to worry about if you bring me something. It's just one of those things is like, I forgot to check for that. And normally always check for that, flip it up and pull it off. It's pretty simple. And then I just take it, shove it in there. And I like to tip the case over so it's a little easier to work with. We're going to change your view so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then this is where I tried the wrong NZXT screws first. Because, you know, first build back from vacation. So take the other screws out that actually work for this and start screwing them in. I'm really glad we were able to save this board and save all of the customer's stuff, and we didn't have to change everything out just because of a silly motherboard, you know, PCIe retention bracket type deal. I think that's pretty. I think it's good that we were able to do that. I think the customers can be pretty pleased with that. I mean, they were pretty pleased with it overall. I took it home, and I think he started using. Oh yeah, I had to grab a extra long screwdriver that's more narrow, so I could actually get that screw in there, and then we'll flip it up, and we'll start attaching all of the case cables. Oh no, not yet. Yeah, right now I'm trying to fix that PCIe slot there, and there's a little bit of that old slot still stuck in a little bit of that old retention bracket still stuck in the slot. So I had to take a screwdriver and put it in there and kind of finagle it out with some side snips, I guess is what they are. And after I got the rest of the bracket out, or retention bracket out, I was able to stick in a new one. It's a little tricky though. I'm trying to show you guys, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing to show, I guess. That's the best way to put it, is it's not the easiest thing to show. It's pretty small. And then, so now I'm plugging in power supply cables to the power supply. I tend to dust it off, because it's gross to put a dusty power supply into a new case. Not really sure what that look was that I just made at the camera, but whatever. All right, so this is me fiddling with the hard drive, trying to figure out how it mounts. And you know those flat screws that I told you guys don't use for the motherboard? Yeah, use them for the hard drive. That's what they're for. Well, among other things. They're also, they also serve the same purpose as the PCIe slot retention screws. They're the same size and everything. But, yep, they work to hold the hard drive in place, no problem. So you can see I got the hard drive mounted there, undoing the twist ties for the case cables. Feeding those through where they need to go. We'll hook them up on the board. And again, not always the easiest thing to showcase, because it's not like I can zoom you right in and show you. Maybe if I had a cameraman who was over my shoulder, then I probably could, but I don't have that. I'm a one-man show, so. Plugging in the front panel connector, and then getting the fans ready. Got that HD audio cable run as well. It all looks kind of like loose and floppy there. But right now I'm working on getting the CPU fans run, because that's the most important next step here. Sometimes I have to turn the case away from you a little bit. You'll forgive me, this arm is relatively stiff that I have the camera sitting on, so I'm actually surprised that this was not more shaky as far as the footage goes. I mean, this camera must just have really good image stabilization, because it didn't shake like at all. And this arm was attached to the desk, so obviously we're making a lot of movement there. Only cable from this case that was unable to be attached was that USB-C cable that you see hanging out front there, because the board, being the age that it is, did not have a USB-C port on it. So that's just kind of where it left us, was without that. So sliding that power supply in, plenty of room in that case for the power supply with that hard drive tray still in there, because it's just a decent power supply. Screwing in the power supply back there, and then we'll run the cabling for that. Probably the most complicated part of the power supply installation was the CPU power cable. because the CPU power cable is again in a weird spot, and so it was just trying to get the fingering right on it, I guess is the best way to put that. And then we plugged in the hard drive, tucked the excess in there, run the PCIe power cable up through the bottom. That way it's ready to go when we need to plug in the graphics card. We'll flip it back around. I undid a zip tie that was attached to the CPU power cables because it was tying both little pieces together. And I needed the flexibility to be able to plug them into the motherboard because it was a little challenging. You can see I'm really having a time of it. It probably took me about 3 minutes to get the CPU power cables plugged into the board. I know it didn't seem like it was that bad, but it's quicker because I'm speeding all this up for you. All right, so then I attach the USB cable. So the USB port works on the front of the case. And then I just tuck everything nicely back there so it tucks away and cable manages well. Then I pull the slot covers off and start installing the GPU. Graphics card installation was one I wanted to be extra careful on because I wanted to make sure that it stayed in and was nice and tight. And I was really happy about that. The new clip that I bought like a set of 5 PCIe cable, not cable clips, but PCIe slot clips. It worked beautifully. It didn't feel like it was going to, but the graphics card did not budge after this. And I think I try to show you that by tugging on the back there a little bit once I get the Wi-Fi card installed. But I just kind of try to put it through its paces a little bit. So anyway, wrapping that up, putting that slide cover on. And plugging in the Wi-Fi antenna. If you've stuck around this long, I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a bit since I've uploaded a video, and I know this one might be a little dry, but I found it interesting, so I thought I would share it with you. But if you guys like this content, please smash that like button. Definitely subscribe to the channel. We would absolutely love that. And, just thank you for watching. Thank you so much for clicking on my video because, yeah, I'm still trying to grow this channel. You can see we're at about 1,400 followers. So have a good one, guys.